Today's Tuesday, May 14th. May the 14th be with you.
And we're going to do government and social media. And it's not all Facebook social media this week, but most of it is because...
The walls are closing in on Facebook. I feel like that every week is a new chapter, and like we need to write this up as some sort of drama because will Facebook survive this? Because there's all this cavalry coming in, and there's just... Seems like an impossible situation for them to survive.
What popular actor would play Mark Zuckerberg?
A toaster.
Maybe we gender bend it. Put a female lead in there. The kids would love that.
I don't know of any actor that, like, is there an actor that could play that? I mean, it's literally...
Didn't they do a movie?
You have to, well, yeah. Oh, yeah, The Social Network. That guy did a really great job playing Mark Zuckerberg. It was, I'll think of it in about 5 minutes.
Well, another person that's not popular among the children or anybody really... Actually, I guess, like, rich old politicians are particularly fond of him. But not in the telecom industry, but not anybody else, is Ajit Pai. He's also always in the news.
Ajit Pai refuses to investigate Frontier's horrible telecom service. The writer of this article really did their homework on this too, because it's not just one instance of this. It's actually thousands of complaints in like Minnesota. But this is not the first time that the FCC has ignored these kinds of complaints against a communications provider.
As you might imagine, Minnesota, pretty rural. It's mostly just cows. Wait, is that Wisconsin? It's probably both, right?
Probably both. Corrections, engagement challenge.
So they are a big recipient of the municipal rural broadband. What's it called? The money that comes out of your bill.
$27 million.
And goes into spreading broadband to rural communities like that. So they get a lot of that money. And Pi says, no, look at these reports that they produced. They're doing an excellent job of spreading the rural service, and the opponents here are saying that's not what we're talking about, Mr. Pai. We're talking about the fact that the service goes down for months at a time, and they don't do anything.
Yeah, the for months at a time was the operative thing there. So it was the House, I think, had written him a letter asking what's up with this, and he really didn't directly respond to any of their questions. It was literally just, we've got this report. Things seem fine in the report. From
Frontier.
Yeah, it's like some things seem fine in the report. It's probably fine. But the reality in, like, some of you guys are in rural America. You tell us how is ISP connectivity there. It's pretty terrible, isn't it? Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. And they also, not only does it go out for months at a time, but they refuse to change the billing because of that. Like, You still have to pay your bill. You're still under contract, even when your service doesn't work. And there seems to be a lot of empirical evidence, if not documented evidence, that this is happening and people are complaining, but Ajit Pai he doesn't see it.
A lot of the people in those rural communities will take matters into their own hands and just build their own ISP, but there's lots of political and other barriers that stop that, which is the really disappointing thing here, because that's what makes people feel powerless.
One of the biggest opponents of that, Mr. Ajit Pai.
Turns out.
Yeah. And when it comes to regulation, a lot of people point to the current technological climate and say we need regulation, but somehow it's a myopic look because they don't see Ajit Pai as the ultimate end to regulation. You have to fix it on a more fundamental level, but that doesn't change the FTC's desire to see it.
FTC commissioners back privacy law to regulate tech companies. So this, the New York Times talks about how Zuckerberg has called to be regulated, but I think it's a little bit of a red herring here because the FTC is just not equipped to handle technological things in general. They're not. The Federal Communications Commission was originally created because this new thing called radio and the implications of that. And the FTC has just not done a good job retooling themselves as things have changed over the last 200 years.
We see this every time that they question somebody from the tech industry. Like the, what's his name from Google?
Sundar
Pichai. When they were grilling him, and he was just like sitting there with his mouth open, and I was like, "What? What are you asking me?"
I've got my iPhone right here, and he's like, "Sir, that's not my iPhone. We don't do iPhones."
So yeah, it seems. Do we need something Yeah, we probably do. I mean, there are some big problems. Are these the people to do it? Probably not. But is it better than nothing? Also a good question.
Are there any reasonable people left in government?
No.
Just one reasonable person.
You can't get there. You can't win an election. Oh my gosh. So many pop-ups from Wired. And here's another perfect example of somebody needs to do something. But are we really thinking it through?
This senator wants to ban video game loot boxes aimed at kids. So, okay.
Loot boxes and microtransactions. Now, there's some weird wording in this bill. It's aimed at kids is actually in the text. But then there's a caveat of, or widely popular among kids. So what video game isn't widely popular among kids that's widely popular?
Train Simulator?
I think kids are playing that.
Euro Truck Simulator?
I think kids are playing that. Wow. I don't think those have loot boxes either.
Maybe one of those, like, anime click adventures that are not supposed to be played by children.
But I bet children play those. See, that's the thing. And then who decides, how do you determine if it's widely played by children?
Yeah, that is ambiguous.
Obviously, some of the shooter games, which are like mature rated, right? Kids are playing those.
I forgot what article it was, but when we get to it, it was the one about mobile PUBG, but I'll just spoil it right now. So in China, you don't, like, when you down somebody, they no longer die. They produce a loot box and wave goodbye because of local regulations.
Like a good communist citizen would when you shoot them.
Here's my loot box. I'll see you later.
So yeah, I don't know about this one. It seems now loot boxes. I think almost everybody agrees that loot boxes are terrible things.
Yeah,
and microtransactions are terrible things. But if you want to do foreshadowing, the Fortnite article,
yeah,
that will be not in this episode, but eventually down the road, kids maybe do like those things.
Yeah,
it might be a big part of their social world.
I know a lot of middle-aged moms that are playing Candy Crush, and Candy Crush is one of the things the article mentions because there's like $150 like multi-pack thing for Candy Crush.
A bundle.
And I'm sitting here thinking, we're in the wrong business. I mean, $150 for Candy Crush? Candy Crush?
Yeah, well, it looks like we picked the wrong time to switch horses on that one.
Lord.
The U.S. is actually kind of lagging behind. Several EU countries have already done something like this. And it's interesting because the game companies were quick to change those games. But I think in terms of one of the Star Wars games, it turned out that once you took that out of it, then they had focused so much on making it, just an endorphin machine to make you want to buy things. When they took that out of it, the game kind of sucked, which is interesting.
We need to design games that people genuinely enjoy, not that exploit psychological hacks in order to sell our crap.
But there's just no money in that. How can you make money in that, even though people have been doing it since, the 70s?
We ought to make people play Zork. And it's like, this is what we played this and we liked it.
Yeah, that's one of the things about the arcade cabinet is when you don't have the risk of that quarter on the line and there's no, that risk reward is not there anymore. You're like, these games weren't that much fun. These are kind of repetitive and they're kind of all the same game with different skins on them.
I was surprised at how terrible I was at Frogger because I used to be really good at Frogger. I'm terrible at Frogger.
I got one of the high scores on Frogger on that machine. I'll say it. Do you remember the Anthem hackers? I don't think we talked about this on the Level 1 News because that was 2014.
Yeah.
We didn't exist.
Yeah.
But there was Anthem, the insurance company, was hacked, and the wheels of justice, they turned, but they turned slow.
I'm not really sure they got everybody, but the U.S. has charged one of the Anthem hackers. They picked him up outside Indianapolis. And they stopped short of blaming the Chinese government, but the person they picked up is a Chinese national that was somehow involved, so...
Fuji Wang.
I have a feeling that this is going to be coming up in the Level 1 News again and again. This is from ZDNet. There really wasn't a lot of details here other than they picked up this guy, and there's some pretty good evidence, but that's about it.
Yeah, but like you say, he was definitely not working alone. Was he working with the Chinese government? This could be completely political.
Yeah.
Bad news for Fuji Wang.
I wonder how this is connected to Meng Zhu, the Huawei CEO.
I mean, when I say I'm talking about like the trade war.
Oh yeah,
he's a casualty of the trade war. Maybe a bargaining chip.
That's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, the trade war is bad. And speaking of big money and how it controls all of our destinies, here's an interesting new thing. Of course, we all know that tech company, well, Uber, for example. Let's foreshadow again. Let's just spoil all the news stories. Uber had the big IPO, and I'm just going to give you a little spoiler. Didn't go well. And it shows how a company, once they go public, can be completely controlled by the investors and the shareholders because they want profit. And some people in Silicon Valley are saying, we have a better way.
U.S. regulators approve a new Silicon Valley stock exchange. This is really the last hurdle. I read this expecting to be very angry because it's coming out of the valley, so obviously it's going to be terrible for humanity and terrible for society. But this exchange is focused on long-term stuff. It talked about how the guy that started it did a bunch of analysis of companies that had gone public, and even if you just look at like how often they filed for a patent or how much R&D they were doing, as soon as they go public, they're focused on the next quarter numbers, and things like R&D and patents and stuff like that go out. Hell, you could look at Google. You could say that it took Google a little while, but there's something going on. Google today is not the Google that they were 10 years ago.
Well, think about Intel. If Intel was in this situation, could they survive coming out and saying, listen, guys, that 10 nanometer stuff, we were way optimistic on that. We're going to get it, but it's going to take longer. But it's okay because, it's going to happen eventually. If they did that now,
yeah, that would be bad.
They would be crucified. It's actually better for them to lie.
Yeah, everything's on track.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, no, it's not on track. 7 nanometer is going to beat 10 nanometer here. It's not and we're on track.
So maybe that's a good thing. I remember when the algorithmic trading was like really in the news. That's been 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago at this point. There was a guy that came out and he was like, hey, just give me money. I've designed a stock exchange that prevents that from happening. And you never heard from him again.
Yeah. That's sort of what I expected here. So this is something I'm going to watch with cautious optimism.
Yeah, it is going to happen. Now the question is, are all the big brokers going to let you trade?
They make a lot of money from the terrible situation.
But they are letting, most of the big brokers are now getting into cryptocurrency. So maybe just making money wins out over protecting the old guard.
I don't know. Maybe long term. Short term, there's no liquidity. Like if the short term market stuff is all arrested algorithmically, everything will enter paralysis. That would actually slow down the growth of the economy.
Yeah. I mean, if you get in a situation so bad that the machines pull out, then we're already in free fall.
Yeah.
So then you can't get out and everybody gets crushed. And that's going to be an interesting time. That's going to be like prepper time. China, we've talked about them already, but let's talk about China Mobile. It kind of seems like Huawei was the scapegoat for a little while, but now we've got China Mobile, and we can beat that horse for a while.
The FCC has blocked China Mobile from operating in the U.S. over national security concerns. Now remember, from weeks gone past at the Level 1 News, China Mobile was not going to operate in the U.S. as China Mobile, but they were interested in entering the U.S. market, and the FCC has said no.
You think they're sitting around the boardroom lamenting? It's like, we shouldn't have called ourselves China Mobile.
Well, what's to stop them from buying a tiny... there are still very tiny regional providers here in the U.S. What would stop them from just buying one of those and then starting to expand aggressively?
You could get Sprint for a bargain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, good luck stopping that.
But again, I think that's pretty much political. I don't think you can't beat this one easily.
I wonder what the lobbyists are going to do when like Cisco is blocked in China. It's like, oh, Cisco wants to sell their stuff in China. Nope.
I don't think they'll care. But I think that's the purpose of the trade war, right?
Cisco will care.
Oh yeah, but Cisco's not the U.S. government. They don't have the lobbying power. Now, if Google gets blocked,
or Oracle, I bet Larry Ellison would be real upset.
But we've seen that Google is more than happy to bend over backwards to do what China wants.
We've stopped working on this. Now we've got a China team that's working on it. Wait, there's work still being done. Shh.
Well, if you love drugs or illegal firearms or human trafficking or stolen data, there's only one. It's one-stop shopping, and that's the dark web. But you got to worry.
The Justice Department has shut down a dark web drug directory and arrested the alleged owners. So this was apparently a I don't want to call it a social network, but it connected providers with.
Well, you can't. There is no web crawler for the dark web.
Yeah.
So you have to. It's like remember the early days of the internet where you had directory sites and there wasn't even a search. I mean,
Yeah.
Google existed, but it's like it wasn't what it is now. You had web crawler and Alta Vista, and so sometimes you would just go to these directory sites. It's like, oh, here's the cool sites on the internet, because we didn't know what was cool. We had to be told. That's kind of what the dark web is now. This guy just ran one of those, and you're thinking, wow, that's crazy. They arrested a guy and shut him down just for doing that. Not just for doing that.
Yeah, there was some other stuff in there that he was doing that was probably bad.
He took a little bit of money every time one of his links took you to make a drug transaction, for example. Which is impressive. I mean, if I was running those sites, I would be terrified to run tracking software that tracked that much of the interaction.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to follow that user from the click all the way to the transaction, which is going to destroy their anonymity.
I wonder at what point it becomes illegal. Like, is it just that it's like, if here's a link to this site where you can maybe do some illegal stuff, is that illegal? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think it's the fact that he took money.
Yeah.
Because the charge is money laundering.
Well, I'm just thinking about like the Facebook ads where Facebook has gotten paid for selling subprime loans. I mean, in effect. So it's like, is that the same?
Well, subprime loans weren't illegal at the time. But you knew that this was illegal and you were making money off of it.
Okay.
I think. But money laundering, it might not even have been that. The money laundering might have been his attempt to turn the crypto into
actual real cash.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like they'll go way downstream to charge you, but we all know what it's about. And it's about the directory. Robocalls, I feel like my robocalls have stepped up lately.
They have.
Yeah. I don't think I've gotten these, but I would never know because who calls back? These days, I never call a number back if I miss a call.
Nope.
Ever. That's crazy.
One ring robocall scam targeting New York and Arizona area codes, the FCC has warned. So what happens is they call you and they hang up while it's ringing. If you call them back, if you aren't paying attention, you're calling a toll number. They're going to bill the bejesus out of you.
And it's in Africa, so it's not, I don't think it's like a 900 or a toll number that we recognize as a toll number. I think 222 is the exchange, so you can watch out for that. But again, don't call those numbers back. But the horrific thing about this was it happens in the middle of the night. So when you get a call in the middle of the night, you do have that fear like, oh, who's dead? Especially the older you get. And they would call you multiple times in a short amount of time. So it's like, oh my God, this is urgent. I better find out what it is. Pay a toll. Terrible. Terrible things they're doing. And we're worried about loot boxes.
Yeah.
Excellent priorities, government. Cloudflare. The Cloudflare was in the news because it kind of protects its users' identities or tries to. Remember the big white supremacy thing?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, well, should they? Should they not? It turns out you can get a subpoena pretty easily.
The RIAA has obtained a subpoena to expose infringing Cloudflare users. So there's some websites that the RIAA has identified, and they sent a letter to Cloudflare that's like, hey, we want these people, but doesn't this also constitute repeat infringement under your own? Cloudflare actually does have policies for taking down sites that are repeat infringing pirate sites, or however how you want to say that. And so this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Here they are. Smart enough to obfuscate most of these URLs, but this one is obviously Taylor Swift. And she doesn't tolerate that shit.
I've noticed that recently the Google search results require your email now to view the DMCA results, which is disappointing.
So yeah, they you only need a clerk's signature to get that subpoena to go to make Cloudflare identify the owner of an infringing URL. I guess you'd have to prove it's an infringing URL, but who knows? We'll see what happens there. They also have not said what they intend to do about it. but I think it's pretty clear they're going to sue somebody.
Yeah.
Smart locks and ring doorbells and all that stuff. It seems like people are adopting those pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
A lot of people have those. I was at the veterinarian I went to for my cats. She had Ring everywhere.
Oh, someone has not told her about the Russians mining Bitcoin on the ring doorbells. That's not good.
So, and you see a lot of those. Of course, we had the stories about people stealing them, even though they're locked to a specific thing. But some people don't like them. And what do you do if you rent and your landlord thinks you should have that?
Well, tenants have won a settlement. A settlement orders landlords to give physical keys over smart locks. This is a settlement, though. I'm like, CNET makes this sound like it's more than it is, but basically some tenants got together to sue some landlords in New York that were implementing the smart lock system, and they settled out of court. It was getting ready to go to court, and a lawyer for the landlords was kind of snide about it. They're like, look,
Well, he just lost.
well, I mean, they didn't really lose. They agreed to settle, but the lawyer was like, we're going to do this. And apparently the building owner was like, this is dumb. If they want to use regular locks, we'll just let them. So it seemed like the lawyer didn't get to do what they wanted on the landlord side, but the landlords just didn't care. They didn't want the PR, probably.
The tenants had a good argument. Although they mentioned one of the tenants was 97 years old.
Yeah.
And you imagine, he didn't care about the privacy stuff. He was just like, I can't figure my locks out, But they talked about, I can't remember who the lock company was, but somebody read the term of service and it was like, we're tracking your location at all times. And they're like, we shouldn't have to give up our location privacy just to use these doors.
Yeah.
That's not okay. Which makes sense.
There's actually prominent. I'm surprised it doesn't mention it, but there's a prominent security researcher, Leslie Carhart, that recently ran into this same kind of a thing, and she ended up moving because they got the locks and they started doing like a forensic analysis on the locks, and it was as Internet of Things as you might imagine. It was not secure at all, like literally just not even. And it's like, yeah, it'll be fine. It wasn't fine.
And in that situation, the landlord is the owner of the software. So, I mean, a landlord's going to get into your place if they want to, but that would make it very trivial for them to do so. Yeah. And to monitor when you're not there so they can sneak in and, pilfer or whatever. San Francisco has followed a couple of other cities in a surprising move when it comes to the war on cash.
SF approves a ban on cashless stores. Now, this is surprising because I've been to San Francisco and a lot of stuff there was cashless. So I have to think this was motivated by the whole Amazon store thing.
Well, they claim it was motivated because poor people and people of color, that's always the argument, is they have, it gave the percentages, but it was something like Black and Latino families, around 15% don't have bank accounts.
Well, it seems like they're slow on the uptake if that's the case because, last year, like all the little bodegas and streetcars and stuff, it was like, I need your, we're going to do this through Stripe. It was like, cash? It's like, no, let's do Stripe. Oh, okay. So sort of a weird situation.
I don't like painting it in terms of, identity politics. I think it's just a terrible idea to not use something as versatile as cash.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to get to a point where it's like, oh, I don't take that credit card because they charge too much.
Yeah. I
only take these credit cards. And then, oh, we only want Apple Pay. I have to be an Apple user to buy a deli sandwich?
No.
So
I like that. I mean, I like the ban. I agree. I think that if you run a store, you should take cash. I definitely agree with that. The timing of this is a bit suspect because it seemed like that a lot of things in SF were already basically cashless. And maybe that's why they reached a tipping point where it's like, all right, this is getting out of hand.
Well, they also, San Francisco is well publicized as having a huge homeless problem. Matt, you remember the poop app?
The whole thing was brown.
So it's probably true that some of these places stopped taking cash so those people wouldn't come into their stores. Because you're busking. I like how busking has become a word. It's not begging. It's busking. Busk on over to our Patreon.
Patreon.com/Level1.
But, it's like, hey, we're getting a lot of these undesirables in here with their ragged dollar bills, like they got 21s and they're trying to buy stuff.
They smell like poop.
Yeah, yeah. And, well, they're pooping in the store. So let's ban cash and then maybe they won't come in. Maybe there's something to that. Illinois is a hotbed of political corruption and, more importantly, crippling debt. Thanks mostly to Chicago and their horrific corruption problem. Illinois is, I think, one of the most indebted states in the union. And because of that, they're raising taxes. They're raising the gasoline tax more than double.
Yeah.
It's going from 19 cents a gallon, which is crazy, to 44 cents a gallon.
Yeah, that's happening in Michigan as well.
Think about 44 cents a gallon, and you're filling up between 20 and 30 gallon tank. That's a lot of money every fill up. But what do you do about electric cars? You can't catch them in that net, right?
Illinois has proposed a $1,000 annual registration fee for electric cars. So we need to call back to our previous story because I think people without bank accounts and people of color are going to have a real problem with either one of those things.
You think what do you think the Venn diagram of people without bank accounts and people with Teslas looks like? But yeah, so they're saying that because you're not filling up with gasoline, you're basically skipping out on the extra taxes. So they figure $1,000 a year will cover you. And that's up from $14.99 is what it is right now. So bad news. They do point out that, people got like a $4,000 state subsidy when they bought their electric vehicle, but it only takes 4 years to eat that up.
Yeah.
So still seems like an overall loss.
What a disaster.
And if you're in the electric vehicle game, you got to know that's going to crush your sales. Like that's like cost of ownership just skyrockets with that. Well, you alluded to this one. China, and we've talked about before how the Chinese, they enacted that ban on video games because it was corrupting the youth, they said. And they gave them like a couple of months grace period so you could do a review process. And that's over, and guess who failed the review process?
Tencent has shut down PUBG Mobile in China for a patriotic alternative. This article is talking exclusively about PUBG Mobile, and that's cool, but PUBG on the desktop also got the changes that I mentioned earlier, which it's cute. It is cute as heck because it's like, there's somebody crawling around, and then it's like you're going to kill them or whatever in the video game, and are
you sure I don't think it's PUBG. The thing about it is they replaced it. And the replacement is literally PUBG copied.
Yeah.
Like they took everything.
Yeah, it's
So it might be that other game you're talking about.
No, it's PUBG for the desktop, not PUBG Mobile.
Well, the mobile version they talk about is it's exactly the same, but like the storyline is I don't know how you justify them killing each other, but they're like part of the Air Force, the Chinese Air Force. So it's patriotic. Even though it's exactly the same.
Neat. It was just like, bye. And then there's the thing.
Yeah. Interesting that they would do that to one of their own. I mean, it's Tencent that owns it, right? Or no. It's Tencent made the copy, and Bluehole is Korean. Yeah. So they thought that maybe Korean-Chinese tensions were weighing in on the decision.
Probably.
In warfare, there is something known as asymmetric response, right? That's where I stab you with a knife and you shoot me with a tank, right? Overwhelming response. And I think in the history of warfare, there's never been a more asymmetric response than what happened in Israel and Palestine.
And at first, Israel has responded to Hamas hackers with an airstrike. So they have pictures of the building. That was, wow. I mean, just wow.
There it is. They got a video, too, from the spy plane that was looking at it. And there was no physical danger caused by this building. This was pure online hacking. And we don't know what. They didn't release exactly what they were doing. But they did admit it was all a, cyber threat and that they had already nullified it.
Yeah.
On the cyber end.
Well, the phrasing from they quoted the guy who said that they nullified it, and his phrasing makes me think that it's like, we knew what they were doing and we stopped them, but they didn't really stop them and it was annoying, so they did this.
blew up a building. It turns out NATO did accept that, like, the cyber warfare was a valid warfare front.
But 3 years ago, this is a consequence of that.
So if you cyber attack, that's an attack. There's no discrepancy between that and launching rockets, as you can see here.
What about if you just encourage criminals to run roughshod over the business enterprise? Because that's what we've got from Russia and China at this point. With all the ransomware and that kind of thing. It's like, we'll just let our criminals attack your stuff with impunity. That's not the state. It's just the criminals.
Well, in that situation, you have to risk huge international conflicts. But with Israel and Palestine, they're already... so.
It's already a bit of a mess.
Yeah, so what are you going to do? What you shouldn't do is hack Israel if you're in Palestine. That's pretty obvious. Because do you think... I mean, that had to be... I guess they probably didn't even know it happened, right? It's just like 1 minute you're hacking merrily, and the next minute you're dust.
Yeah.
But it's got to have a chilling effect.
I'll feel real bad if it turns out it's like the early cases of hacking here where it was just a precocious 12-year-old. It's like, oh, man.
Really? Well, you got to wonder what else was in that building.
Yeah.
I mean, they claim it was a Hamas building, but there was probably an accountant on the third floor. You know?
I got a great deal on this office space.
We talked about India getting into the space race, and of course China landed their dark side of the moon mission. Japan did that cool thing with the asteroid, but they're not done yet.
First private space Japanese rocket has reached space. So, yeah, Japanese rocketry is not anything new, but this rocket has made it to the edge of space. Well, this is almost.
Private.
Private.
The Japanese government's done it. They're the ones that went to the asteroid. But this is the Japanese SpaceX, a private investor.
I want to know what Japanese Elon Musk's Twitter is.
You think he's as vocal?
Engagement challenge.
So this thing just barely made it across the line that starts with a K that I can never think of. And it was only in the air for 8 minutes. So as far as rocket launches go, not great. And I don't think it landed on a platform like SpaceX does. But it will be a huge money-saving venture to launch satellites with these private rockets.
Yeah.
All things considered. So congratulations to them. And switching over to India. Now this story, I read this story and I imagine Indian politicians sitting around a table, and it's like, look how much money the EU is making finding these big tech companies. Why are we not doing this? What are we thinking? We got to get on this train.
India is investigating Google over alleged Android abuse. What alleged Android abuse, you might wonder? Well, location tracking and ad data and stuff that's actually built into Android, the stuff that you use Android for, basically.
Kind of like what the Indian government's doing with their biometric database. I was impressed that 97% of mobile phones in India are Android. They don't like iPhones for whatever reason.
Makes sense.
That's cool. But yeah, I think India is just looking to get on that gravy train of finding big tech companies. But it also, even with 97% of Indian users using Android, a tiny part of Google's overall Android market. So I think it's just probably a lot of low-cost phones and low-cost service plans and stuff like that.
I would guess that probably is because there's a lot of rural service. So, but there are a lot of people that have the phones that don't have computers. Like that's their computational device. It does everything.
Right. Yeah. But I think they overwhelmingly buy cheaper manufactured phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
that would make sense.
Although Android really doesn't, I guess the price of the phone really doesn't factor into it. Maybe they're just not big spenders on the store and stuff like that. Maybe they're not buying the $150 Candy Crush package.
But you got to think that with Google having that much control of the phone, that if there is any money to be made there, they're going to have the first opportunity to make that money.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if Apple is, like, what are they doing about that? Do they care?
They may not care.
Because India's, what they call an emerging market.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and they're getting into that middle class type of world that ours is falling apart. So it's going overseas, and Apple's got to be losing that battle.
I think historically my assumption's always been that India is in better shape economically than China in terms of like you want to sell your products, but I think the reverse is probably true.
Yeah, well, they had that Amazon thing.
Yeah.
They're very protective of their brands. but they don't have a smartphone OS, so maybe they'll make one. Fake news. We don't talk about fake news as much as we used to. I think it became kind of a meme, and then it lost its power.
We're all fake news, according to some folks.
We'll get a comment on YouTube from time to time. It's like, this is fake news. And it's like, well, okay, we're just kind of repeating it. But Singapore, I guess, they're behind the curve, and they've just now decided to get very serious about it.
Singapore has passed a new law to police fake news despite concerns. I read this, and the whole time I was sitting there thinking, they read what's happening in the EU, and they want in on some of that action, because it's not about fake news, it's about control of the internet. And this is a very thinly veiled attempt to do an end run around the internet as it exists today, and have EU-style controls. This is the first step.
The government can demand a takedown or a change of your online content. If you do not play ball with that, the fine is $1 million Singapore dollars, which is like 750,000 US, and some jail time, actually. So, take it seriously. But yeah, like you say, all the opponents of it are like, you're not really protecting anybody from fake news. You're just stifling speech that you don't like.
Yeah.
And they mentioned they have like the Freedom Index. Out of 150 countries measured on the Freedom Index, Singapore's in the 140s. So, a little bit of a track record there. The EU, a lot of people have celebrated GDPR, and we've seen some wins. The GDPR seems to have done some good things.
And then the copyright thing happened.
And it seems like they definitely are going after the big tech companies, and they're being more serious about it than we are. So maybe that's a good thing. But then you get into the hypocrisy of government. And that's where we come here.
EU quietly ramps up preparations to reintroduce blanket data retention after top court threw it out in 2014. This would seem to be the exact opposite of GDPR. So
it would seem like that.
I'm going to do, I'm going to enjoy some of the devices that the internet has to offer, which are perfectly legal. But there's going to be a record of that from now until the end of time, which some of my political opponents might use against me. That seems good.
Yeah, and they also talk about Article 13, which is now Article 17, which is like, it's like the Blackwater. Just change the name. Nobody will know. And how Article 13 could be to try to get in front of the GDPR preventing something like this.
Yeah.
Because they've kind of realized it's like, oh, wait, we pushed all this feel-good legislation, but that stops us from doing what we want. And so we need to change things.
So it's not really about protecting citizens at all. It's about controlling the internet. Oh, what program on YouTube could have possibly predicted that? YouTube.com.
So, yeah. Bad times. And that's another thing. It's like in 2014, everybody was celebrating that. It's like, oh, wow.
I want to hear from the people that posted, when we were talking about GDPR and how it was good for the EU citizenry. I want to hear from the people that commented on those videos back then now, where it's like...
You just bought yourself several 5-paragraph posts. I hope you're happy.
Hey, as long as the YouTube engagement algorithm is happy, I don't care.
You got to file this next story under, I wonder who paid for this.
Facebook and Instagram don't wreck kids' lives, claims a new study. Oh, sweet summer child.
University of Oxford. Now, they make an interesting suggestion here, and they claim to have proved it. And they assert that it's not that depressed, suicidal kids are made so by social media. It's that social media and social media abuse naturally attracts suicidal, depressed kids. So, of course, that's who's using that. It's the chicken and the egg.
That seems like something that could not be studied in a study that, is just a few weeks long.
Well, listen, the University of Oxford, they've looked at it, and they say you're wrong.
For about 4 weeks.
Yeah. Although, with, social media, as ubiquitous as it is, who are they studying that's not using it?
Well, I mean, how many instances of it can there be where there've been, like, really egregious near misses from kids in not a good state psychologically?
Yeah, and we've always had messed up kids. Let's not pretend that that's a new thing.
Yeah.
And it is true that social media kind of probably shines a light on some of the more messed up kids. Because before they were just messed up at home in their bedroom. And now you can witness their freakishness.
There does seem to be maybe a worse situation, which is when those kids that have problems connect with other kids that have problems, they're a lot stronger.
Yeah, it's like people who were sexually attracted to My Little Pony. We've had that kind of thing forever, right? But they were ashamed of it, as they should be. But now they can find others like themselves and normalize it.
Engagement challenge.
We talked about... I'm blanking on this. Who was it that was manually looking at posts?
Facebook.
Was it Facebook doing that too?
Yeah.
No, it was somebody else, right?
It was Are you talking
Amazon?
Are you talking about how like they were just losing their minds because they had to do such terrible, like they had to do and see such terrible things?
It was more recent than that, but it's all the same thing, and that's what this is talking about.
Facebook contractors categorize your private posts to train AI. So there is a bunch of people in India that are going through all of your private messages and reading them and then labeling them so that they can use it to train AI.
Yeah, and it's everything. It's your status updates, your videos, your posts, your private messages. Nothing is off limits. And what they're doing is, it's basically they'll go and read it, and they have a big list of categories, and it's like, oh, this is a birthday wish. This is a death threat, and then put it in the proper container. And that's just something they do to train the AI. But it means that somebody's reading your posts. They might not know exactly who you are. And I like they interviewed one of the guys who ran the center where they were doing this, and they were like, what if, like, there's privacy concerns. What if people speak out about this? Are you worried about losing your job? And he was just like, are you kidding? The AI would never work if we didn't do this. They're never going to stop doing this. They have to do this.
They did ask that. This is almost simultaneous with the keynote or whatever that Zuckerberg gave last week or the week before, where he talked about rebuilding Facebook as a privacy-focused company. And that guy was like, yeah, we're not, whatever changes are coming, we can't not do this because of that.
Yeah.
The AI has to be trained. We must train the AI. It must be
fed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the co-founder of Facebook has had a few things to say. Mr. Chris Hughes, you may remember him from the original pictures of Facebook. It's like, who are these two losers? Have a great. I'll show the picture later in the article.
Facebook co-founder says Zuckerberg is not accountable and calls for a government breakup. So Chris Hughes is saying, Facebook's got too much power. It's drunk with power. We need to just break it up, and that'll cause the antitrust issues to go away.
The Facebook PR response to this was so measured and gentle and level-headed, but Zuckerberg broke some glass behind the scenes,
threw some chairs. I mean, I miss the days where we had Microsoft. It's like when Steve Ballmer was pissed off, he was throwing chairs, and you knew, and it was fine.
There he is, Mr. Hughes, looking like he's about 12 years old in that picture. 2004, so long ago, when that came to be, that horrible thing. But yeah, I'm sure he's right. But if we break up Facebook, I wonder if we break up Facebook, does that really fix anything?
No.
What does it look like?
Facebook broken up is a gulf that's filled by Google Plus immediately. Even though, yes, I'm aware that Google Plus is no longer a thing.
But I mean, even if you break it up, the individual parts are still going to operate under the same focal, that's how they make money. How are they going to change just because it's a smaller company now?
Is there the better question to ask is there a way to provide what Facebook provides that people like without people having to give up a lot of information about themselves?
But I think they want to give up information about themselves in a lot of those cases.
Well, they want to give, I don't mind giving up information about myself to my friends and the people that I'm connecting with, but it's not necessarily the case that the service provider has to be able to be a part of that conversation.
But you can't make money doing that. The data is the money. We just have a government one that runs at a loss, like the post office.
That will totally get corrupted immediately.
No, never. That would never happen in a government system. Remember Cambridge Analytica? we're just now getting to the point where Facebook's going to have to pay the bill for Cambridge Analytica, and it's going to be in the billions. They're negotiating right now, which is interesting. It's like you're so powerful that you get to negotiate the settlement from your crime. A lot of people don't get to do that. And a new lawsuit has come out that maybe points to something almost exactly the same.
New Facebook lawsuit suggests another Cambridge Analytica has come to light. So the article breaks down elements of the lawsuit, and it sure does look like Cambridge Analytica because it's tracking and quiz applications and blah, blah, blah. This is more on like the marketing side. It's like building marketing profiles for people.
RankWave.
Yeah.
So RankWave would help you OAuth in Facebook people to your website or whatever you had, and then track those people through Facebook and their analytics to give you more insight about them, which sure sounds a lot like what Cambridge Analytica was doing.
I also use quizzes, like personality quizzes, just like Cambridge Analytica.
People love quizzes. You go through your entire school years hating quizzes. Then you get out of school, what do? You want to take quizzes online.
Which Game of Thrones character are you? Maybe that's the key to teaching high school history. It's like, which monarch of England are you? It's like,
which single-celled organism are you? Like, you could make it anything. Oh man, which geometric shape? We've all been waiting. And as we say, the wheels of justice, they turn slowly.
You've been waiting. I don't care.
I've been waiting breathlessly. You tell me you can't wait to see what happens with this.
I am curious to see what happens, but I really I don't care.
And it turns out the reason things were going so slowly is because Mr. Elon Musk, behind the scenes, was working tirelessly to say that he was not serious about calling that poor fellow a pedophile. But a judge has now ruled.
Elon Musk is going to trial for calling that cave diver a pedophile on Twitter. Womp womp. That's from The Verge.
Most of this comes out of an email he wrote to one of the websites. Was it Wired?
Yeah. He was like, oh, that was supposed to be in confidence. No.
And the email was basically like, no, seriously, he's a pedophile. No, look into it. Dude, you're a reporter. Go investigate. You'll find out he's a pedophile. And so
he said that he had a child bride or something.
He moved to Thailand to marry a 12-year-old girl was the implication. Yeah. So that's going to go forward. If he has any sense at all, he will do everything he can to settle with that guy.
Yeah.
And not admit guilt. But it's Musk, and he seems to have a lot of pride, so we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure that guy's looking forward to the money.
I would like to see Musk hire that guy that Bezos hired, like his PI. Like if Bezos' PI goes to work on this, and then I want to see that guy's report. Like if that guy comes back and it's like, where did you get the child bride thing? You need to settle this. It's like, all right.
Well, I've said before, the darkest timeline is if he turns out he's right all along. That guy was, because it's like not only is that bad for everybody because the child bride, but also because Musk gets to win.
Yeah.
And he gets
truly the darkest timeline.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one. I hope that guy is, but you got to think. If you're that guy and you really did do that, would you not have the sense to you have to weigh those two things?
Yeah, just let it go.
Because he's got unlimited resources to dig into your past. I don't know. And finally, well, that one was about Twitter, but one of our few non-Facebook entries and one of my favorite stories of the week. I had not heard of Jessy Taylor. Had you?
Nope.
No? Well, she's huge on Instagram, right?
Apparently.
But not anymore.
Instagram influencer whose $100,000 strong following got wiped says she called the police because it felt like murder. The police told her, no, in fact, it was not like murder at all.
Nor a matter to be calling the police over.
Yeah, a lot of people flagged her account as spam, apparently, and even though she had a lot of followers, it was removed.
Yeah, it's she in her quotes here. There she is. And she's basically an Instagram thought, as I gather.
Used to work as a stripper.
Yeah, attractive girl. And apparently she was she did some racist content at some point, and she was very mean to people who said not nice things about her. Went after them, maybe turned her followers against them, fought dirty, and over in these interviews, she's like, look, I made some mistakes. But I do find it weird that you can just get somebody to delete it.
It's probably an algorithm.
And the racial stuff maybe was what put it over the edge, right?
Yeah. A reviewer looks at that and it's just like, no, this doesn't make sense.
And she admits, she's like, no, I'm not racist. I just saw that other Instagram people were saying racist stuff and getting a lot of followers, so I figured I'd try it.
In our case, it's demonetized when people see the news from other websites and they're just like, no, I don't want to agree with this. And it's like, okay, we've entered a realm where we can't talk about news.
Well, that's how it goes. Well, we get those comments where it's like, I can't believe that you used the Washington Post as a source. Unsubscribe. And then 2 down, it's like, I can't believe you used Fox News. But yeah, she's also said that she's made $5 million. Or was it $500,000?
It was $500,000
in 3 years, which is not bad for not working. And but she's now saying, "Hey guys, with my lifestyle, that amount of money just won't last. I need to be back on Instagram." Seems to be. She's gonna switch to YouTube. Hey, welcome to YouTube.
I got some bad news.
If you think it's easy to demonetize you on Instagram, wait till you see YouTube.
Join our Patreon at patreon.com/Level1.
I wonder if she's got a Patreon.
Patreon frowns upon this kind of content now as well.
Well, I don't know that her content included nudity. It may have. She also continually refers to the fact that she's a Sagittarius, as if that's a defense. It's like, I couldn't possibly be this kind of person. I'm a Sagittarius. I dropped the keypad.
No.
My emote under the table that you couldn't even see.
That's the end of the show. What do we got coming up?
Tomorrow will be business, and I forgot what the other one will be. I think it will be robots. Yeah, business and robots.
We had some good business stories this week.
Business was the biggest group this week.
We'll see you tomorrow. It's May 15th. Computex approaches dangerously quickly.
Now, from my childhood playing Lunar Lander, I had a copy on the Commodore 64. I know that landing on the lunar surface is incredibly dangerous. If you're off by a single degree,
A single pixel.
it will burst into flame and the whole thing will collapse, which is weird considering the gravitational and atmospheric conditions on the moon. But that's how it works, which makes this story even more impressive.
Jeff Bezos has unveiled a lunar lander to take astronauts to the moon by 2024. Listen, the explosion in Lunar Lander on the Commodore 64 was basically the astronaut equivalent of the cyanide capsule, because otherwise they're just going off into interstellar space, and nobody wants to die like that.
But you might have a couple of minutes to radio home to your family.
Yeah. No,
just end it.
It's better they not know what happened.
They didn't have a video feed back then, did they? They brought the film back with them.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you could set the camera up and be like, all right, for posterity, I'm going to pop this helmet. We're going to see what happens.
I think that would actually be worse. Like, I can imagine that it's like, no, he died in an accident.
Your kids having to see that. Yeah. So here it is. Looks pretty cool. Blue Moon.
I'm surprised it's as large as it is. And as large as it is, I'm surprised that it fits 6 people.
Well, 3 metric tons of stuff can be loaded onto it. Because Bezos is saying, hey, we're going to the moon and we're not coming back. We're building a space station.
Well, I mean, if you can get some fuel from the moon, whoever cracks the nut to get to the moon first and get like the H3 and some other cool fuel stuff, I mean, they're going to have a license to print money.
Well, did you read his speech? Because that was kind of what he went into. It was kind of like, well, you know what? My billions of dollars, I recognize that this is not a sustainable path for the Earth. In order to keep growing my riches, I must go interstellar. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for the space riches because the Earth can't contain me. I'm too powerful.
I can't wait for one of these rich guys to locate an asteroid in the asteroid belt that's just a giant gold nugget. Like, what are they going to... They're single-handedly going to change everything.
But that would destroy the value of gold, and which is the backstop for all of our currency, which destroys the paradigm.
I don't think that somebody like Bezos would care. I think it would just be like, I'm going to swim in gold nugget chunks.
Just Make it like build a giant golden robot for himself.
Damn the economy, full speed
Golden
ahead.
robot. Yeah, well, be cool. Now, here's the thing about it, though. What do you keep that a secret and trickle in the gold to maximize the profit?
Yeah.
That's going to be a tough thing to keep a secret, though.
Well, he's going to land it on the moon. That's why he's got the moon lander.
Well, but then the moon people, the Moonanites, are going to see it, and then you just have to start killing them. That's going to be a great novel. We talked about Intel before, and Intel, they haven't really brought the 10 nanometer. They talk about it, and today is no exception. They're going to talk about it some more.
Intel process technology update. 10 nanometer server products in the first half of 2020. Accelerated 7 nanometer in 2021. Wait, now what? 2020? Oh, no.
Amazingly, the first product is going to be a GPU, not a CPU.
Oh, no.
Or at least they say that's what it's going to be, but we'll see.
Roger Koduri was in attendance saying things like, poor Navi. I mean, poor Volta. Oh, no.
So, yeah. That's continual disappointment
From Intel?
From poor Intel.
I'm really looking forward to this Computex launch, let me tell you.
Amazon. Now, we've talked about people getting fired from Amazon basically by algorithm. Your performance dips below a certain level. There's really no warning. It's just the machine chooses you and you must go. And we know some people who are affected by this. But sometimes you expect a person's performance to degrade for a small period of time. And most workplaces kind of work around that. They kind of accept that. But not Amazon.
Amazon fired the 7 pregnant workers. Then came the lawsuits. So, yeah, a warehouse worker told her manager she was pregnant. Less than 2 months later, she was fired. Several lawsuits against Amazon show a similar pattern. So, I mean, it stands to reason that you're not servicing work as fast as you were because there's another human being living inside of you, or a proto-human being.
It wasn't even just that. It was, hey, like this woman said she went to her supervisor and she's like, listen, I'm going to be peeing a lot more.
No.
And that's a big deal at Amazon. You're not supposed to be doing that. And she admitted, the manager was like, ooh, that's going to be a problem. And it was. So, yeah. If you're Amazon, though, I mean, they're looking at it in terms of, we've promised this to the customer, and you've made a life choice that has reduced your ability to do this performance. I mean, is there any grounds there, or is that just too evil?
Well, in the European Union, that would, they're going to get a paid vacation.
Well, that's just pure socialism.
In the U.S., I don't know. It's going to be, I bet this one goes to the Supreme Court in the end.
If it were me and I were Bezos, I'd be like, here's a voucher. Go down to the Amazon clinic there in the basement. Get that parasite right out of there.
I thought you were going somewhere else, and then it was like, no, it's Ryan. I know exactly where he's going. Here, have a voucher for some Amazon products to offset your lack of productivity.
We'll clean that right up. You'll be back on your feet in no time. Yeah. Take the rest of the day off after that, but be here bright and early tomorrow and get to picking those products. And, think about your life choices. Think about your Amazon family.
I wonder if there's ever, the stories, the warehouse workers, is like, man, Erin, she was a legendary picker, and then she had a kid, and she just wasn't the same after that. But she was legendary.
She lost her picks per minute, man. She never came back.
Ain't nobody been a picker like her before or since.
She used to go 13, 14 hours without peeing. Not anymore, man. Not anymore. Remember the Galaxy Fold? Nobody does. It's been too many weeks.
No, it's gone. It's gone forever.
Nobody talks about it, especially not Samsung.
Samsung Electronics says no anticipated shipping date yet for the Galaxy Fold. Although, wait, there was another article. Oh no, I think they announced on Friday that they had a ship date.
Oh, when is it?
Like a month.
That seems ambitious.
They figured out some way to fix the fold from getting debris in it. They sprayed it with some type of plastic that expands and contracts. And
that sounds like it's untested.
Yeah, I don't know.
How could you test it for 1 million bins in that amount of time?
Well, that's the funny thing. They actually have been testing it. Like the bending machine that they had tested it for a huge number of bends, but it didn't test it in like a dirty environment.
Yeah,
like
so
it didn't test bending it and then putting it in a pocket and taking it out. But if you can keep the crap out, that's the only thing you need to test.
you know what they should do? Samsung, contact me. We should put that bending machine right beside my cat's litter box, because I guarantee you it will get some crap down in the hinges.
What a clever solution! I mean, it probably would.
And the cats, it would also test it for like scratches and stuff, because just a moving item in their room, the cats would love that. They'd love to attack that. I put this story in. I was telling Wendell before. I was like, because Google AMP, everybody hates it, and that whole URL rewriting thing. Oh man,
accelerated mobile pages for AMP.
People are not excited about this, and I thought that's what this article was about. It's from VentureBeat, but it turns out this article is just like a big cheerleading thing for them.
Google creates dedicated placement in search results for AMP stories, starting with the travel category. So the deal with AMP is that when you're looking at a search result, you can click on that, and because it's AMP, Google basically already has the content. You don't have to hit somebody else's server for the content. So when you're on mobile, because the mobile network in America is somewhere between abysmal and god-awful, it normally takes a long time for a web page to load when you're on mobile. And so Google's been really aggressive with dialing down their tools so that the pages have to be very small and light and fast. But AMP takes it to another level where Google's actually hosting your landing page for you. So when you Google something and you get an AMP result, the content's actually coming from Google, so it's very fast, but it has to fit all these rules. And so for travel sites, like what is there to do in Toronto, AMP is going to have dedicated spots in the search results.
And you can see why people might hate it, because it looks exactly like clickbait at the bottom of articles. It really puts you in mind of that. And it's got like a little flip book animation thing going on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I want my Google results to be sterile and trustworthy. I know you're evil, but at least you did this right. Remember that time you did something right? And now it's turning into this.
It's an interesting situation because a lot of web designers and web developers do not like AMP. But a lot of the forces that drive this type of hosting, a lot of the marketing forces, they want their analytics scripts and their tracking scripts and God knows what else. And that is what slows the page down. And so in this situation, Google is saying, well, we can't trust third parties to do this correctly, so we'll make them use the AMP framework, which doesn't do any of those things in terms of like tracking and scripts and stuff.
Well, I bet it's using Google Analytics.
Yeah, I mean, it's got all of Google stuff, but it doesn't have any third-party stuff. So,
can you imagine, because we've worked with companies who would do this kind of thing, can you imagine how nightmarish it is when they call you and they're like, hey, listen, we just need to change like 5 things about this. We just need to change the font and the placement and the background image, and Google already has its cache of it. So then you have to invalidate that.
Oh, no, it's more horrifying than that. We had that one project where they were moving away from AMP because of all of the problems, and there literally was not a way to do that. Like, at the time, Google had not built in a way to make the pages no longer AMP. So when you wanted to, it's like, all right, I'm going to do this nice, like, React responsive website, and not the AMP thing. And it was really fast. Google was just like, nope, we're not turning off AMP results. So when you would click on that, it would just break the page. It was great. It was so great. A lot of complaints about that. Good job, Google.
You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fixed now, but it's not a great situation.
A lot of people like to cancel their cable bill. They like to cut the cord.
This story was delightful.
And if you're a cable company, what do you do? How do you combat that? How do you keep your customers? Well, just like AMP, you don't let them leave.
Charter squeezes more money out of internet users with its new cancellation policy. No more prorated final bills. So if you're moving and it's like, hey, I'm moving on the 15th into my new place, can you cancel my service on the 15th and hook it up somewhere else? The new answer is no. You're going to have to pay through the end of the month.
It turns out they're not the first to do this. Actually, they were one of the few left that did prorate your cancellations, but not anymore. Get ready to pay it all. So if you're going to move, factor that into your moving schedule. Move at the end of the month.
What a terrible, terrible company.
Yeah.
It's also the situation, like under some state laws, this might actually be illegal, not because of the policy, but for double charging. So, like, if you're a landlord and somebody breaks the lease and moves out, you can't charge them for the rent until unless if somebody else moves in immediately, then you're not really out anything. So there's not really any damages. So you can't, like, somebody's in a 5-year term, you can't really get the full 5-year collected plus whatever. But that's exactly what they're doing here. It's like, if you move out on the 5th and somebody else moves into your old place by like the 7th and they sign up for new service, Charter's getting double paid. You're paying for your old service at your old location, and the new person is paying for new service at your old location.
But what if that person gets different service?
There's still overlap. It's got to be some kind of overlap.
And those states, they probably just won't even bother.
Yeah.
So, yay for states' rights.
Yeah.
Maybe try using them. Uber had a big day this week. A big down day. It was the IPO. Now, the IPO was supposed to launch at $45. Now, a lot of people were saying, man, it's going to be $60 by the end of the day. We're going to make so much money. Well, it actually launched at $42.
I was one of the people that's surprised that this went as badly as it did.
Have you looked at the fundamentals on Uber?
Yeah, it's really bad.
They burn more money than Amazon.
The reason I thought it was going to go well is because, like, from a 10,000 foot view with the whole, like, food delivery thing, I thought it was going to go really well. But CNBC said that Uber ends its first day of trading down more than 7%. And it's only gotten a little worse since this article. Maybe by the time the news airs, it will be better. But as of right now, things are looking pretty grim.
41.50, I think, is around in the aftermarket. That's what it ended up being. Now, that is 7% is not the most of any IPO losing money on the first day, but because of the insane market valuation, it is the most money any IPO has ever lost on the first day.
They were hoping to raise $120 billion. They're going to raise probably about 60.
So, and still incredibly overvalued.
Yeah.
Even then.
Well, it explains why they've been doing the whole, like, Uber Eats and, you know, all the other stuff with Uber lately.
Yeah, because they're burning cash.
Yeah.
They also had the big Uber strike.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that necessarily affected the IPO.
Probably not.
Because I think Uber is the kind of service where no matter how many people strike, other people are just going to jump in and fill the void. One guy who was striking made the statement, this says, I feel like a slave. And I feel like that really downplays actual slavery. Because it's like, oh, you installed an app, applied for the service, set up your bank account. You went through like 12 steps to become an Uber driver. And then as soon as you start doing it, you're like, I'm a slave. Not really.
You got to launch the app and do stuff. You can get trapped in that situation, though. I mean, if you're in a situation where you're just barely making enough money by working a ton of hours, and it's like, I need to take some time to find something better to do, you might not have the time to do that without everything collapsing.
But you could do that in a lot of different jobs.
Yeah. Not just Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a bad choice. People make bad choices. They have to deal with the consequences of those choices. That's not to say that I think Uber's a great company or anything, but I don't know. We will see. We will see what happens next week. That'll be interesting. I don't think I would have. I would not have the balls to play that either way, because it could pop back or it could just continue to crumble.
It really is dependent on people. Like the stock is irrelevant. How technically awesome it is irrelevant. What they got going on under the hood, differentiating technology, like intellectual property protection, literally none of that matters. It's just what the unwashed masses think.
Well, but you're half right about that, but you also have to consider what the algorithms think.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, the algorithms were written by unwashed masses.
I think, yeah. You know, there probably are a lot of guys writing those algorithms who do not watch regularly. That's definitely true. I was really surprised about the statistics in this article. Basically, everything about this surprised me.
U.S. adults are spending big on video games, playing mostly on smartphones. Yeah, so the average American video gamer is 33 years old and first play on their smartphone, and they're spending big on content. So this makes sense to me because people are on their phones whenever there's not anything else to do. So like on the morning commute, on the train, or on the bus or whatever, and they're listening to music. They're doing the podcast thing. Internet connectivity is not the great on subways here, so yeah, playing a game to kill time makes sense.
But also surprising that they're spending so much, and you got to think that's microtransactions, right?
It's probably microtransactions, but it's also probably the app stores, because I mean it's $1, $2, $5. That's a lot different than like $30, $50 games.
But didn't they give the amount was like in the hundreds of dollars?
Well, it's over time though.
So even then, I mean, you're going to buy 100 apps?
Well, you'd be surprised how many people are spending like $1,000 a year on coffee when you take it $1,000 like over a year.
55 to 64, unsurprisingly, Solitaire, Scrabble, and Mahjong and Monopoly for women. 40 to 54, Tetris, Pac-Man, Call of Duty, Forza, NBA 2K. Okay. 18 to 34, that's the big one. Candy Crush. Candy Crush is king.
Candy Crush does not make any sense to me. Zero, none.
Assassin's Creed, Tomb Raider. I don't think those are mobile games, are they?
They are.
Wow. God of War, Madden, Fortnite. No surprise there. So yeah, that's really interesting that it's not kids. And here we are trying to protect the kids from microtransactions. The average age is 33.
Listen, I am super bored on that train ride to work in the morning. I've got to crush my candy with ever increasing precision and efficiency.
I'll do anything not to make contact with the other people on the subway.
Have you seen the other people on the subway?
Any price. Well, here's some good news for everybody who loves to hoard data. 512 gig SSDs price per gig estimated to fall below 10 cents per gigabyte and hit an all-time low by this year end, says TrendForce. I might have jumped on the bandwagon a little early. Micro Center had 1 terabyte SSDs, NVMe SSDs on sale for around $100. So I bought like a lot. Well, that's the other thing they mentioned is that the PCI price is going to come down to the SATA price.
Yeah.
Basically going to be parity. So why would you buy the other one if you got a motherboard that has the extra slots, right?
Love me some NVMe storage, especially fast NVMe storage.
I don't want to participate in your quiz. We talked a lot about, I feel like it's been maybe a year, 6 months since but for a while there, week after week, there was just story after story about 3D printed houses. And that was going to be the revolution.
I want a 3D printed house.
But you didn't really see too much of them after that.
No.
It's like they didn't catch on. But, and pretty soon, not in America, but in the Americas, we will see them.
The world's first 3D printed village is coming to Latin America this summer. So these houses are all the same, but not really. They painted them different. They did a pretty good job with this.
Some of them are corrugated.
It's surprisingly effective. You know what else has been popular? This is not in the article, but on Amazon, tiny houses have been really popular. Like where you order everything on a kit and it delivers it, and then you assemble it. It takes like 8 hours.
Krista loves the tiny house.
So these are pretty cool, though. These are a lot bigger than those.
So you can kind of see this is their template for the rooms you can get, and you can arrange them in slightly different ways, but not really. So you can use this little tool just to draw them in, and you get these row houses. And the weird thing about it, they had open air kitchens, which I guess only works
in tropical areas.
Yeah. Although if you're having a hurricane, isn't that going to be weird?
Yeah.
How do you deal with animals coming and stealing your kitchen utensils?
The raccoon comes and licks the grease out from below the...
And they're all concrete. They just mix a pigment in with the concrete to get the other colors. And they all feature this little, covered porch area for socialization. Now, the people who are getting these, I don't know they're necessarily paying for them. I think it's like a public housing initiative. And these are people who are living in like tents somewhere.
So we were talking about the California homeless problem in the last episode. Wouldn't it be cool if you drove like an hour or two outside of San Francisco and just built a ton of these? And it's like, hey, homeless person, guess what? If you just go live here, you don't have to live here anymore in the city. You can go live there.
But think about, because you would have this little tight, collected city where just like disease and
the
drugs.
Lawlessness and drugs.
Yeah. You'd probably get like, there'd be a lot of prostitution, human slavery.
A little bit Mad Max, I guess.
Get a little dark. I'd get them out of the city, right? I mean...
New York just puts them on a bus to another state. It's like this is some other state's problem.
What if we built your city and then we charged New York to take in their bust homeless? There's a money-making scheme. a little bit darker. Here's another story that I put in, and I didn't realize at the time it wasn't about what I thought it was about. I thought this was more about the Linux coming to Windows meme, but it's really just about the noob terminal, which is kind of part of that.
We'll talk about both, even though this article missed out an excellent opportunity. Windows gets a new terminal. They're talking about like a terminal program, finally. Although the PowerShell terminal is not completely awful. But this is a program that will give you the command prompt, PowerShell, or Bash. You totally can run Bash in this, which is the Linux under Windows thing. So Windows is getting a new Linux kernel, which is the other part this article does not mention. And so the Linux kernel will be inside of Windows to be able to better run Linux programs under Windows. That's also coming. Neat.
It's cool. No reason to complain about that. You can hate Windows all you want, but they're trying, maybe.
The year of the Linux desktop is because Microsoft has willed it so, and I am sad on the inside.
I think that Venn diagram of like people willing to use Linux under Windows versus people who will just switch to Linux. I think the average Windows user isn't going to know about this.
Or care.
And the average person who wants to use Bash is just going to use Linux.
That's probably true.
Maybe at work if you have to use Windows, maybe for those people. I mean, of course, if you're a person who's learning Windows and learning to use the command line, having Bash in there is going to make everything so much better.
Although, I think if you were somebody starting out from scratch and you got the old DOS style command windows and Bash and PowerShell, you're just going to be sitting there thinking, WTF, how did we get in this situation? All of these things have similar commands, but they're different and things don't work exactly the same.
Yeah, it is going to be a little weird. And you're going to get used to, which way are the slashes going to go?
It's literally both ways now.
That's going to be a question, right?
The slashes literally go both ways. Oh, no.
Hey, that's the modern way, right? Apple.
We don't judge.
Apple has been caught. What we do about OS is we don't about sexuality. Apple has been caught in a bit of a lie, according to an advocacy group.
Apple is vastly exaggerating iPhone battery life claims, according to a UK advocacy group. So I saw a couple different takes on this, and I'm not sure what to make. This article goes into Apple battery testing and testing methodology and like what do the numbers say. But I was looking at I pulled up Samsung for comparison, and so in the disclosures that Apple has for like their applications and how they do their battery life testing, Apple seems to be a lot more thorough than when Samsung's advertising, say, like the S9 or the S10. Because it's like, here's the testing that we did in the competing phone and the applications that we used and the screen brightness and all that kind of stuff. Both of them disclose some information, but it seemed like Apple was disclosing a lot more information than Samsung.
That was their excuse. They're like, hey, testing environments are different. I could explain it. Although, according to this group, the XR, which was the worst offender, was a 51% difference in the advertised versus actual talk time.
There are a couple things that would make a big difference in that. Like the whole Intel versus Qualcomm modem, that's going to make a 30% difference.
Well, you got to think that inside Apple's testing room, they're connecting to their own access point.
Yeah.
Which is next door.
Yeah, the wireless connection is going to be right there. So it's not going to require the radio to operate at really high levels. I think there's a lot of details like that probably matter. This is purely anecdotal as well, but it seems like Apple batteries age much worse than competing batteries. And so like after 6 months, you have a noticeable decline in battery life if you charge and recharge, like you discharge completely and recharge basically every day.
But when you advertise your battery life, should it have to be that amortization built into it? Because I'm sure it's it's today, right? Like that's what you advertise.
Yeah.
Today's battery life.
Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting that the different batteries age at different rates because it seems just, again, anecdotal evidence, but it seems like the larger batteries and some of the larger handsets age much better than the smaller handsets. And Apple handsets seem to just eat the battery like crazy.
And it's probably not... Does Apple let the carriers do the bloatware like they do with Android?
No.
So that wouldn't be a factor. But with Android, that's got to be a huge factor.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Facebook is eating my battery constantly. Thanks, Facebook.
This one is interesting because it's tangentially related to technology, but the poster itself
I thought it was ironic. I was expecting there to be a punchline here. There's no punchline.
references video games, which now we've learned that this would be the target audience for video games, right? Because 33 and up. But Delta doesn't want you to unionize. And what is their excuse?
Delta Airlines told staff, don't unionize, buy video games.
No, literally, that's the poster they put up.
Union dues cost around $700 a year. A new video game system is about with some games costs the same. You should do that instead of joining. It's just really like, who thought this was a good idea?
It's so patronizing. And of course, people have cried foul, as they should have. Whether you're pro or anti-union, this was a stupid idea.
Yeah.
So it's not just the inside the plane people. It's like machinists and I think mechanics, maybe aerospace workers. So they're trying to unionize, and Delta doesn't like the sound of that. This is we talk about. Of course, we talk about charter. We talk about cable cutting, and it's biting them. Of course, that one turned out to be internet access. But when people cancel their cable TV, these companies want to do everything they can to stop it because they know you're never coming back. You're probably not even shopping around. You're just done.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse. Now we have some new numbers.
Dire new figures show the cable industry is now losing 14,000 subscribers every day.
That's a lot.
14,000 a day. That doesn't seem like enough.
Well, I mean, how many cable subscribers do you think there are in the U.S.? Is this worldwide or U.S.? I think this is U.S.
U.S., I think. Might be North America.
Either way, 14,000 a day is an attrition rate that, I mean, because you got to think the average contract is, like 75 a month, maybe 65 a month?
Well, the cost proposition there is way off. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out because look at the cost of a box set. Like, suppose, your favorite TV show, like season 1 of like your favorite TV show or whatever, it's like $20. If you stop paying cable TV, and I think we learned from, doing this on the Level 1 news that most people's cable TV bill is like $100, $150 a month, you could get a lot of box sets every month and still come out ahead.
Yeah. But I'm saying, as high as it is, multiply that by 14,000 per day, and you're losing that a month.
Yeah.
That is a lot of money.
And this is the industry that literally just went through a bunch of buyouts and mergers that cost billions of dollars. So somebody is going to get paid on those buyouts. So not only do you have to have kept your old business running at status quo, but you somehow have to make more money on it. With that many subscribers leaving, there's simply no way to do that.
Well, you charge more, and you destroy the alternative, which is your internet access.
Yes.
And you chop that up into little pieces.
Necessarily, you would have to destroy the internet access part of it.
And you create some sort of microtransaction fast lane type of deal. And you here's the important part. You invest in lobbying the government.
I like how at no point where neither of us are discussing investing in infrastructure or making the infrastructure better, because there's just not enough money to do that.
Because you can literally let it go for a month and nobody cares.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Let's switch over to talking about some robots and some artificial intelligence. And NextWeb believes that artificial intelligence is going to be the new wave of entertainers.
AI avatars could be the next generation's favorite entertainers. Yeah, you said that. Sorry, I didn't realize we switched roles there. My bad.
More personality than your average Instagram thought, right?
So, some hilariously brilliant person, like I realize how sad this is. Some hilariously brilliant person has taken the best of Reddit subreddit and written a bot to go through all of those threads, and it's literally just a text-to-speech engine that reads the comments, but it highlights as it reads. And then, like, the punchline's there somewhere, so you can't read ahead of the the terrible text-to-speech voice, but it's like in the middle of the screen. It's very formulaic. It's decent for generated, but it's in the middle of the screen, but it's just text-to-speech, and it reads the thing and why it's funny and why it was like super upvoted. And so because it was super upvoted, it is actually funny. And then it just does the robot chicken thing where it's like you change the channel and then it just does the next one and the next one and the next one. And it's just 10 minutes of that at a time. And those videos have like 500,000 views, 1 million views. It's completely insane. And it's totally bot. Like it is presented by a bot, not even AI, just a bot.
Well, we don't have a lot of this here, but in China, I got a couple of videos here that will show, and this is really picking up steam in China.
Yeah.
People seem to accept it. They have, this was like some sort of variety show or something, I think. And then they've got these, something to do with these pop groups. And some of these are AI, maybe. I didn't watch the videos, I'm gonna be honest with you, but they're talking about how the younger generation is becoming more and more comfortable with having AI as the thing that they love. And, I mean, it's not wildly different, I guess, than like a cartoon.
I'm thinking about back to my childhood and lots of awkward conversations and having to learn about bathing and hygiene and stuff. I think I would have rather learned about all that from AI.
We had Teddy Ruxpin, remember him?
Yeah, Teddy Ruxpin's like, oh yeah.
But remember some psychologists were warning against letting your children, for example, just spend all their time with Alexa.
Yes.
Because that was becoming a thing.
Yeah, that could end badly.
So you got to wonder, it's going to get weird. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Why not? Why not see what happens? Can it get worse than it is now? Probably not. So you mentioned artificial intelligence or just a bot, and the people coming up with clever ways to use them. Because that's the thing about it, right? Like these adversarial networks and all of the AI stuff, it's incredibly powerful, but it's kind of like a 3D printer.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? You got to come up with some novel idea, and it's surprisingly hard to do. This guy came up with a good one.
It was a girl, I think.
Oh, was it?
I think so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Neural net names I've already messed it up. A neural net names racehorses. We covered this before. Last week or the week before, we mentioned that a neural net did this, but this is the actual blog post from the person that did it.
And the great thing about this is they came up with a horse image network.
Yeah, it's just horrifying.
To go along with it. Now, these are some that are like pretty realistic. North Storm, Desert Cat.
I like some of the ones that she didn't like or that the author didn't like.
Well, that's the next two. But these are, you could totally like
Lord Power.
Horses have weird names.
Frisky Joe.
That's one of the things I like about Kentucky Derby, for example, is how that announcer has to be dead serious about some of those stupid names.
Well, it's Frisky Joe down to the 9.
Because it's just people. And here's where we get into the adversarial network. This is supposed to be a horse and buggy.
Well, that was I think it was there's no image set of just horses. It's horses and buggies, and so that had to be like blended together that way.
And then we get down into the okay, these are kind of weird. Which Snow Motion is a good one, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a white horse. Orcus Shuffleston.
I like Pig's Liver and Rapple Musty. I mean,
not
those aren't
bad.
terrible.
These are more weird than anything, but then you get into the third tier. Also, these terrifying images.
Fart Hand.
Party Can also, I think, is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Party Can.
Devil Tina.
Snuckles.
Mr. Fact.
If you're going to name a pet, any pet, actually, you couldn't.
Snuckles. Engagement challenge. Did you name one of your pets?
Snuckles. I love those images. But that is, again, just a great thing to do with artificial intelligence. Why not? Because you've got you got a data set that goes back how many years? We've been racing horses forever, and they've been, carefully marking the bloodlines. It's amazing how well horse genealogy is kept. Far better than humans.
Going back far enough, yeah. It's because you can make a lot of money on those horses.
Oh, yeah. And cool thing to do with AI. Hard to think of. So kudos to that person whose gender I'm not sure of.
I even read a thing that said somewhere they were digging up, or they were trying to clearance to dig up Man of War to get some DNA so they could introduce the defect that makes the giant horse heart.
No, that can't end badly. We talked about last week of the story, the 97 Derby winner. They're selling his poop on eBay for $200. $200 per poop.
Extract the DNA. Just it's like I put that on my wall. It's like, oh,
well, I think he's still alive. I don't think this is preserved poop. I think he's pooping currently.
People just frame that and stick it on a wall.
I don't know what you do with it. Maybe a paperweight. Well, we've talked about facial recognition. Last week we talked about facial recognition in American policing and some of the weird things that can happen with it, and false positives that can really ruin your life. There was that kid who he had an ID that was a non-photo ID, and he used it to get into the Apple Store, because I guess you have to give him an ID to get into the Apple Store. And then somebody stole his identity, and that was the only marriage of face to identity that they had, was the facial recognition from the Apple Store and his non-photo ID. So from that point on, he was associated with that criminal for the rest of his life. And they wouldn't let him back into the Apple Store.
Wow.
And you got to think that that kind of thing is definitely going to happen here.
New data on London Metro Police facial recognition shows it's still wrong 96% of the time. Who could have predicted? Level 1.
96% of the time. And then later they admit that in a smaller time scale, 100% wrong.
Yeah.
But they keep using it.
Yeah. Well, if it's hard for people to tell people apart on a large enough scale, AI is going to not perform at superhuman levels for at least a few generations.
Yeah. And the best excuse they could have in terms of why would you be using this if it's wrong all the time is they said it's led to 8 whole arrests. 8 criminals are off the street. How much do you think that costs per arrest?
Well, I mean, if you arrested everybody, at least some of those people will actually be criminals.
And they do talk about they will just shake you down once it tags you and make sure that you're you.
Algorithmic probable cause. That seems like a bad day for the Supreme Court.
That's going to be one of those TV shows like CIS or CSI and NCIS. And that's APB. This week on APB. Oh, the last story, and it's an exciting one. Now, let me ask you this question. I'm going to ask it of the audience as well. So pause the video, put your answer below. What does the Hellfire missile and Krista have in common? They both attend a lot of weddings.
Drones used missiles with a knife warhead to take out single terrorist targets. So it's a Hellfire missile with a spring-loaded blade to minimize collateral damage.
Why, you ask? Well, it's because of those weddings and other unfortunate public events in the Middle East to get missiles dropped on them pretty regularly. And so the U.S. military looked at that and they was like, should we stop doing that? And someone was like, no, just take the warhead out and put some big giant swords in it. We'll kill them one at a time, maybe 2 or 3, but we won't have that PR debacle of, like the burnt wedding dress and a field of glass. So they came up with this thing, and you can see they actually used it. Oh, where's the picture?
It's right there. Right. Yep.
No, that's a 2x4.
Oh.
That's not a missile. That's actually a comment. The other article had a picture. It was a Kia with like a big 4-bladed hole in the roof.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this thing, the idea is we're going after individuals. This is, the war on terror. And we're trying to get one guy. So instead of blowing up a whole marketplace or a wedding or whatever, this thing just 4 blades spring out of it at the last moment and kill one guy.
I wish Futurama were still on the air, because this would be a great piece of lore for how Roberto came to be. It's like we just drop Roberto on weddings and he finds and stabs the right party.
But here's the question that immediately came to my mind. I don't remember I have looked at the numbers. I don't remember what they are, but the cost of one Hellfire missile is outrageous.
Yeah.
It's like $100,000 or something.
Yeah.
So how important are these targets?
We just want to make sure
that we're dropping $100,000 sword out of the sky to take them out. Seems wasteful.
Can you imagine if we'd had this kind of technology to deal with like the White Walkers?
You mean in American history when Washington had to fight the White Walkers? Yeah. Would have come out different probably. Good thing we won anyway. All right, that's all we got for this week.
Oh.
Well, Samsung, they've had some missteps recently. There was that foldable phone that didn't work out too well.
Oh.
Embarrassing. And I'm afraid their embarrassment will continue.
Samsung spilled the SmartThings app source code and secret keys. So Samsung on the record said, this is just for testing. It wasn't a thing, but it was a thing. And it was literally all of their stuff.
Well, the guy pulled the app from the App Store and was like, no, this is the same.
Yeah.
This is exactly the same. You put the real thing out there.
So it took them over a month to revoke their keys. God knows who else could have gotten it.
Sad.
Very. Well, this is also, we're going to be reporting on this again in about a month because I guarantee you criminals have downloaded that and they're going to be able to take over all of Samsung's Internet of Things, I would bet.
Yeah, there was a heavy amount of, leaking keys this week. Actually, in the past few weeks.
Yeah.
A lot of people are... Version control escapes most people. Especially, they'll get a low-level guy and bring him in, and he's like, all right, I'll just copy all the keys.
It's like, Tom, did you add a bunch of keys to the repository? Oh, yeah, it's cool, but I deleted them. And it's like, I don't think you understand how version control works, Tom.
Maybe Tom should be given an unhackable disk.
The unhackable encrypted flash drive, iDisk, as it happens, is actually hackable. They all have the same recovery password.
I don't think so. No, this guy's showing that he set this pass.
But it's in plain text over the connection.
Right, but this is unique. Like you said, when you set the device up, you do this.
Oh, okay.
But when it communicates, it shows up
text,
here. Yeah. So, and also, it leaked something else. Oh, yeah. The actual password, which is like the iris thing.
Oh, the iris pattern or whatever.
Also shows up in that same kind of...
Unencrypted.
So, pretty bad. Actually, again, this goes back to, did anybody even try to...
This was with a bus protocol analyzer where you have a device that sits between the device and the computer, which has got to be one of the first adversarial models that you would have for testing this.
There's no way the Chinese government has one of those.
You can only get one of those by signing them out from the NSA, and they've only got 3.
They're not all made in China. Microsoft has suffered some attacks to the SharePoint servers.
So Microsoft SharePoint servers are under attack. This is actually a vulnerability that was reported a while ago. So PSA, if your company uses SharePoint, you really need to triple and quadruple check that you've got the patch for this installed, because if not, it's going to be real bad. Well,
the patch came out before this happened, but I guess nobody told Canada and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Or any number of other companies. A lot of people think that automatic server updates would deploy stuff like this, especially in the context of small business server. The answer is no, it doesn't.
Yeah, but this gets you in, and I think, is this the one where they launched the Chinese?
Yeah. You can do you're able to escalate your access once you're in.
China Popper or something. I can't remember if that was this one or not. But anyway, it gives you low-level access, and then you just copy in what you want after that. Roll your own malware from that point. It gives you that kind of access.
Turns out the criminals have figured out how to reverse engineer that patch from a while ago, and if you don't have the patch, it's bad news.
This story is real low on details. And I can see why.
Hackers have breached 3 U.S. antivirus companies, researchers reveal. So they're looking for source code and how the antivirus software works in order to defeat it, basically, is what this story's about.
And they won't say what the antivirus companies are, obviously. But they also said that these guys were trying to sell it, and the source that these guys, Ars Technica was working with, was on the inside, but they found him out. I think Ars Technica might have leaked it, or some other company did. And so that guy's out of the loop now. So they're not sure exactly what's happening. But these guys have abandoned the forum they were trading on, and now they're just doing private messaging. So we're not sure where it went. Look how suspicious this guy is right here. Did you see that Red Hat, they did logo testing? and they're changing the logo because everybody thinks it looks like criminal and suspicious.
Yeah.
Because it's the hat, the trench coat. Yeah.
Swear,
So, like-
open source people have the worst luck.
What kind of like stupid hat do you think they'll in? Is it going to be like one of the propeller hats? Or?
You remember what they did to Jesus in the movie Dogma? It's going to be like that, except it's going to be the fedora logo.
But the fedora also has such terrible, Q rating in terms of like neck beard, and it doesn't help that it's Linux.
Is there any? Could fedora mean anything other than hat?
So there's a lot of apps out there that they tell you they're doing one thing and they're really doing another, like Facebook.
Yeah.
And this is an example of that that's a little easier to understand.
Millions of people uploaded photos to the Ever app. The company then used them to develop facial recognition tools. The app developers were not clear about their intentions, one Ever user said. I believe it's a huge invasion of privacy.
So on one hand, Ever was giving away this free app. And it's like, hey, share your memories. They talk about, I don't know if they show it here, but they talk about like the webpage shows like Sundays with Grandpa, and it's like, oh, look how heartwarming this is. But on the other side, they were perfecting facial recognition and selling that to the big companies. And that was the real purpose for the whole thing.
Can you imagine if somebody like co-opted like the entire communication network of Skype and recorded all of the conversations between everybody and then used that to train an AI that could just have a normal conversation? So it's got the data set of all human communication on the entire Skype network for a couple of years. That's your input data set. And then the output data set is, will this thing pass the Turing test? And I think the answer is going to be, yeah, it totally would pass the Turing test.
Well, imagine if they did that with all the data that the NSA or the European Union collected.
The data retention policy. It's like, it seems like we're on a collision course for inventing sentient AI sooner rather than later.
This article is funny.
That's not how that works.
Because it was... I argue that Lorenzo Franceschi Bichleral, I don't know how to pronounce that, kind of is to blame a little bit here because no one told him that shouldn't put your phone number on the internet.
Google thought my phone number was Facebook's, and it ruined my life. So if you would search for... Because this guy wrote an article about Facebook, and his number was featured in the article that published his article.
He asked for readers to give him tips.
Yeah. Google was like, hey, I found a phone number on this page talking about Facebook. It must be Facebook's phone number. And it would, in fact, was not.
Facebook does not give out a phone number. As you can imagine, they wouldn't. But it turns out people Google what is Facebook's phone number. They gave the statistics. It was a crazy amount. It was so many thousand times a minute. And this guy's number was coming up. And it's hilarious. He talks about all the reasons people were calling him up, from like, how dare you go after conservatives to, I didn't mean to post this, I need to take it down, like that kind of thing. And around the clock, he couldn't escape it. I mean, you just change your number at that point, right?
Yeah. It's like, I've made a huge mistake.
What are you going to do? But it does show that Google's, their algorithm searches desperately to fill in all those details about a business.
Yeah.
And if it can't find it on the main Facebook page, which it never will, it goes into page 2 of Google search.
And the algorithm gets a little fuzzy, colors a little outside the lines in those cases.
The story, it needs $1 to continue.
1 month of digital access for 99 cents. So which one was this one? Amazon
fraud.
Hit by extreme fraud by hackers siphoning merchant funds. So Amazon merchant people are having a bad day because hackers figured out how to get into the system that Amazon uses for paying them and have changed the payment details to their own.
And also, you can get loans as a business from Amazon. So they could not only steal your incoming cash, they take out some loans in your name.
Neat.
Yeah. They didn't give any details about how exactly they accomplished that. Probably because they don't want it repeated. But Amazon is also saying to these people, it might be a couple months before we unfreeze this because we have to figure out what's going on.
Which one of you's were criminals. Which one of you took advantage of the criminal confusion? Because just
Will the non-criminals please step forward?
there was a situation I cleaned up like that once where it was like something bad happened and it was legit bad, but it wasn't like super bad, and I cleaned that up. And then there was another part that looked like somebody had done something completely intentionally, and I confronted them, and it was like, this looks like you did this, and they were like, yeah, I didn't think you were going to be able to recover from that situation, so I took advantage of the situation by also helping myself to the, and it was just like, why would you do that?
Never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
It was a bad week for Wall Street for a little while. Trump came out and said, no deal. And then what's his name? The other guy, the guy had to like talk it back up. But in the meantime, Bitcoin had an amazing week.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why. Maybe it was just risk, hedging with Bitcoin. But Binance, on the other hand, did not have a good week.
Binance says that it lost more than 40 million in Bitcoin stolen in a large-scale hack. So this was their entire hot wallet. They lost their entire hot wallet.
I think it was just one of them.
They didn't lose everything, though. Yeah. Well, they said that there's one disturbing thing in this article that made it sound like they control enough of the blockchain to actually roll back the transactions. But I don't think that's true.
They said they had the option, but they weren't going to do it.
I don't think that's not true.
They can... they're actually big enough they can absorb this, and they had a fund just for this kind of thing. But 40 million.
Yeah.
I gotta say, cryptocurrency, it sounds good and it's great, and it's certainly our monetary system has its flaws, but is this okay? Is it a Tesla versus internal combustion engine with catching fire situation where people just can't wait to report Bitcoin related theft versus the constant theft we have in the existing financial system? Or is Bitcoin this flawed in terms of security?
I think this is underscoring how flawed our own technological infrastructure is. Like, nothing is secure, everything is terrible. If this leads to us actually having secure computers, then we might be in a better spot. I think honestly, after the Snowden leaks and the NSA disclosures and things like Bitcoin, I think things have improved more in the last 5 years than they have in the last 50.
But the human element of error is always going to be too great to overcome.
The human element here is shockingly complicated.
And you can't go to that place where it's like, I'm sorry, Martha, you've been deemed too stupid to compute. Because that's like a human rights.
Well, we actually do have that. Like, there are legal frameworks for that. Like, you set up a trust. It's like, Martha, you are too stupid to manage your money. You get a budget of $2,000 a month, and the law office pays your rent and your groceries and stuff like that.
Like Britney Spears.
Yeah, exactly.
People are furious about that. They don't like that.
Well, look, she went through a period in her life where she was too stupid, and the conservators are actually, like, the legal framework for that. It's actually pretty good because you can go to them and you can say, I'm more responsible now, give me more money, and most of the time they will.
Yeah, but see, you're taking
more control.
This is the argument against like the wealth, like the gun rule.
Oh yeah,
there's the gun rule where your family can just call up the cops and be like, I'm afraid he's going to harm himself or others.
That's terrible.
And then you lose everything. So was Britney really crazy?
Yeah. It seemed like it from the outside, but maybe that was just VH1.
In the Netherlands, they have this sort of points out the flaw of Internet of Things, although this is not... they are Internet of Things now.
Yeah.
But it's an older technology. But it shows what can go wrong when we depend on these things.
I got a firmware update for my ankle monitor, and that has crashed the ankle monitors in the Netherlands. So yeah, this update prevents ankle monitors from sending back data to the police control rooms. So ankle monitor people, we don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Don't panic.
And it's not your fault. So we can't really blame you for it, although they did round up a bunch of them and arrest them. So it's like, hey, we screwed up. Go to jail.
We're going to have to keep you in a confined cell for a while so we know where you are.
In fairness, I guess they did do something originally to merit that. So, yeah, was the biggest thing. But they also pointed out that wireless communication went down once before.
Oh, yeah.
And they lost a whole day of ankle monitoring. So, bad news.
I think as long as the criminals don't know that they're not being monitored, that really wouldn't be much of an issue.
What about a great storyline for like a crime movie or novel or whatever, where like a Jeff Bezos type, he's been caught for insider trading and he's on house arrest with his ankle monitor, and he organizes a rolling blackout to disable the ankle monitor so he can go and like have a secret meeting.
He's got to meet with China to open up the China markets, but there can't be a record of the meeting.
That'd be it's a great story trope, and you should use it if you're writing a book or something. Well, you know what? Sometimes I'll pick stories just because I'll talk. I think about how Krista's going to react to them.
She's not here.
And because she loves mushrooms so much, I thought this would be funny, but she's not here.
Denver just became the first U.S. city to decriminalize psychedelic mushrooms. So, Denver, what are you doing?
Weed's already legal. Now you're gonna get your mushrooms there. That's gonna have a specific kind of tourism dollar. And Denver. Krista's thinking about where to go on her honeymoon. I keep trying to steer her toward Colorado.
She doesn't realize what's happening.
Just for the memes. And I think actually she would have a good time there.
Yeah,
because she likes all that stuff.
The hiking and the camping and stuff.
Well, here's a problem.
Or the weed and stuff. No.
Here's a problem. It's Ramadan, and you're a Muslim, and you need to get up and have your morning meal before dawn comes. Because if you forget, you can't eat all day long.
Got to fast.
not got to go fast. Just
we're not going to talk about the Sonic movie.
We did last week. So, how do you solve that problem? Well, Indonesia has the answer.
The Indonesian Air Force is going to fly a jet fighter to wake people up for sahur. Hopefully I got the pronunciation of that right.
I have no idea.
So, just like the jet's sonic boom is going to wake people up over the Indonesian islands. So
it shouldn't be expensive at all for that jet fuel and maintenance.
It seems like a pragmatic solution. We got jets. We got the fasting going on.
You know what else we've got? We've got smartphones that have alarm clocks on them. I don't think this is a big problem. But, I guess it's a fun PR thing. They do have some Twitter responses of people pointing out how bad of an idea that is. Yeah. The other thing about it is they talk about how they want to be able to train their pilots, but during the fasting, doctors point out that after 10 a.m., your blood sugar is going to drop to a dangerous level for piloting planes. Makes sense, right? And I've been dealing with my cats and their medical problems, which thankfully seem to have gone away now that we're using super expensive cat food.
Level 1 Cats YouTube channel.
But imagine, if you will, now your mom had some hoarding.
Yep. A lot of hoarding.
Her cat didn't live indoors.
No.
But can you imagine when the hoarding situation wasn't things and baubles and tchotchkes, but cats?
More than 300 cats were just found in a Toronto apartment. It was a one-bedroom apartment on like the 18th floor.
Like, how would you even walk?
The animal control people described the situation as the cats were breeding prolifically.
Yeah. Just a big cat orgy. And like, there's no way that any amount of cat litter could contain all that poop. They had to be just going freeform at some point.
Yeah.
And feeding them.
What are they eating?
Well, like a 50-pound bag of cat food for 300 cats. How long would that last?
A day.
You think we need a situation where, like, there's a hotline. It's like, no, she bought another bag. You got to check out the address. Something's bad happening there.
They were able to rescue all the cats. Apparently 70 needed medical attention, 70 of the 300.
Well, yeah, of course.
But
you got to think that just the competition for food was leading to battles, and it's a terrible situation.
They're all up for adoption and all that. So you can, if you're in the Toronto area, you can adopt a hoarder cat.
Here's the thing I thought was interesting. In Toronto, 6 cats per address.
Unless you're animal rescue. But that seems like a lot of foresight.
Also a lot of cats. Let me tell you, 2 are a handful.
Yeah.
Well, Doom there's a new Doom coming out, right? Doom Eternal. And maybe as part of the PR campaign for that, we've got this Doom-based fitness.
Bethesda is pursuing a Doom-based fitness program, and it is surprisingly educational. So, like, quad damage is not overworking your quadriceps.
Ripped and Tear is the name that they're giving it. And they're pointing out the target groups. Now, they've only done a couple. So they've done quadriceps, lats, and Slayer speed ledge climbing. Nice. Now, I think this is a bit of an unrealistic image. Unrealistic body image for the young men.
How would you even get your abs to look like that?
Well, I think that's just the armor.
Oh, right.
But these arms. You know?
You're gonna have to lift demons like over your head 20 times a day.
20 times a day. That's like the One Punch Man workout. Oh, saw so many pop-ups. Now, this one makes me think back. Remember the Obama phone controversy?
Oh, yeah. Poor people can get a phone.
Well, not just poor people, homeless people. Do they need a phone? I suppose maybe they do. I mean, how else are you going to do drug deals, right? Mm-hmm. So, in is this the UK or the EU?
NHS, so this would be the UK.
The UK has decided it's not just phones that poor people need.
Call for poor and disabled to be given NHS fitness trackers. Wearable groups, could be left behind by technology revolution in medicine. So, basically, you wear the fitness tracker, and it will detect if you've fallen, but it'll also keep an eye on your blood pressure and your heart rate and lots of other good stuff. But if you're poor or elderly, you don't want to fool with these things.
You don't?
Well, I mean, because they cost money.
Oh, you're saying, you wouldn't. So, but they're saying nationalize, give them out as a. Now, disabled, wouldn't it be kind of a smack in the face if you get like a step tracker and you're in a wheelchair?
We can still keep an eye on your blood pressure and that kind of thing.
I suppose. They point out that the bottom 15% of earners are generally the bottom 15% in terms of health.
Yeah.
Which kind of
makes sense.
Yeah. So slap these things on them and then, I don't know, I guess call them in whenever something weird happens. But who's monitoring that?
I was always surprised that like just from a food standpoint, even if you get all the vitamins and nutrients and stuff that you want, there was a study here in the U.S. that if you got your vitamins through a supplement versus your vitamins from eating whatever, the vitamins from the supplements were absorbed by the body at a much lower rate than from eating whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's pretty well known that everything that you get, you should get from your food.
Yeah.
I've even seen where people said that drinking water, your body eliminates too much of that. You should be eating like water-filled greens and like celery and stuff to get your hydration.
I believe it.
I don't know if I believe that one, but
I've noticed that sometimes if I have a banana, like I will be like halfway through eating a banana and it's like, I'm thirsty. I should have something to drink. And then I finish the banana and I'm less thirsty after that. Because I think that I don't seem to have my body doesn't seem to know if I'm really hungry or thirsty. But sometimes when I have food that has a lot of water in it, like a banana, it makes me not thirsty.
Just like toast. You know what? You should get some Blue Wilderness cat food. That seems to
because it's super moist.
Yeah. The online challenges continue to take their toll. There's so many. I'm not going to itemize them, but we've laboriously covered all of them in the news. They're one stupider than the next, and now one has actually cost someone their life.
A teen has been critically injured while playing the choking game and has donated his organs. Critically injured was he starved his brain of oxygen, so he survived, but brain dead.
Yeah, there he is. There's a picture of the young man. He's at this point, I don't know if he's dead yet, but they have decided
to harvest his organs,
to not, to pull him off, but not like they'll pull him off right after they yank those organs out of there.
Yeah. He's going to live on in other people.
Just, you got to feel bad.
Choking game?
Like she was making that post to Twitter, Facebook, or something, and it's like she mentioned the incident, but you got to be ashamed of your kid. Choking game. So, public service announcement: don't play the choking game. And he did that by himself. That's choking yourself, by the way.
Yeah.
The idea is you choke yourself until you pass out. And you're fine because once you pass out, you start breathing again. Complications.
Unless you land funny or, whatever. Isn't this how we lost the Kung Fu Legend Continues guy?
Yeah.
David King Carradine, yeah.
That was not the choking game.
It kind of was.
It was a different kind of game. Kazakhstan has had a bit of a despotic government problem.
They've been on eggshells ever since that whole Borat movie.
You think that's what caused it? They don't like any sort of speaking out against the current regime, and it's gotten a bit comical.
Kazakh a citizen has been detained over an empty placard vigil. So this guy thought that, hey, there's something bad going on in my country. Like, you can't really say anything. It's not that you can protest anything or whatever. So he's just literally standing outside of their equivalent of parliament or like their government building or whatever it was. And he's just got a blank sign, and they arrested him. And it's funny because he called the mayor's office, and it was like, I think this is really bad. We're heading toward a bad place here. And the assistant from the mayor's office was like, no, I'll tell you what, I'll go stand with you to make sure that nothing happens. And then that guy got a phone call, and he was only gone 5 minutes, and the police showed up and arrested him.
He also called the press, and he made a special point to not say anything, because if he were chanting something, then that might be disturbing the peace. And he took his blank sign because how could a blank piece of paper be considered, against the government?
They did let him go after they realized what he was doing.
But he got arrested.
But he was arrested.
In the first place.
Something's not... So I think his point has been proven that something very naughty is going on in Kazakhstan.
But will it mean anything?
I mean, it does to the West, but they've probably already moved on to the next thing in the news cycle in his local area.
Oh, the news cycle there is probably a little slower. You think that they even got reported there?
Probably not.
They probably got a state news agency.
They reported it, but then the military police that was in the newspaper publishing thing was like, no, we're not running this story.
We talk a lot about water on Level 1 News because, it's like the whole Nestle argument. Evil corporation, but I like the taste of the water. The forum had a thread about water, and it got as bad as you thought it might. But some people see the water debate and they say, this is stupid. We're killing our planet with these plastic bottles. We're pulling out of public sources. They're selling it to us. This guy saw that same thing, and he said, you know what? I can make a bunch of money with that.
Former creative director for Netflix puts water in a can and calls it punk, and it has raised $1.6 million in funding.
So here it is.
Yeah,
liquid
water.
Death. Murder your thirst. This seems like something from The Simpsons or Futurama, don't you think?
It really does.
Like you'd see advertising like this on the wall. It'd be one of those jokes that they don't point out, but you catch on like the second viewing.
I'm pretty sure that I already saw this product in Idiocracy.
Yeah, basically. What was it? Brondo?
Brondo.
Yeah.
The thirst mutilator.
And this guy just said, you know what? I think people will buy it. And I don't know if people are buying it, but he's got his funding. So the idea is kind of parody, but it's real. But also, he's playing the environmental card because he's saying these aluminum cans are a lot better for the environment.
Than plastic bottles.
Although I've had water from a can, it tastes very aluminum-y.
That's the Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Forget your worries. So if you want some liquid death, coming soon, I guess. This article was great. It's really long, but I read all of it because, was it Polygon? It was just more horrifying as I went and really galvanized my decision to never have children.
I got about halfway through it, and the headline is, Fortnite is free, but kids are getting bullied into spending money. And about halfway through, I was just so incredulous. Like, there is nobody, like, no, this can't be a thing. This has got to be exaggerated. But
so the great thing about this, we throw around the word normie here on the Level 1 News, meaning someone who doesn't have a personality disorder, is well-adjusted, and as such doesn't know the esoteric things that we know, basically is what that means. But these kids are using default as a way of saying someone is like poor or basic.
Yeah.
Or they've not even played enough Fortnite to get a different skin. they're a default. We don't hang out with them.
That's
And
horrifying.
they had a lot of testimonials from all these parents. It's like, I couldn't believe that my kid came to me and was explaining like they needed this $20 skin, or the kids at school just weren't going to talk to him.
But it's a free game. Like, I would be excited to play a free game. Because stuff, I don't know.
Free as in speech, not as in beer.
Well, I'm thinking back. So, like, I think it's, I don't think there was an equivalent of this because...
Oh, there absolutely was. It was like jeans and shoes.
Oh, no, I was thinking on the computer side. So I was thinking like Shareware Doom. Remember Shareware Doom? Everybody was playing Shareware Doom. Nobody had the real copy.
No, but it's just that, well, let's see, not everybody was playing Doom.
Well, yeah, I guess it was just like
It was a very
the five of us.
small amount of us playing Doom. And the other kids were absolutely...
Yeah,
The status was based on all these different cars.
Yeah.
And now everybody plays Fortnite.
Come to think of it, I do recall getting the cold shoulder a few times for wearing my potato sack shirts.
Your black shoes with white socks that you continue to wear to this day.
Yeah. Might have worn socks and sandals a few times.
You would have been a default.
Yeah.
Actually, you probably would have played enough Fortnite that you'd get like the unlocks. Because you can get free stuff, right? Or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, you can't. Well, sometimes you get like a rare skin, and that talks about that. But I mean, that's not really a thing with the. It's definitely a status symbol of some kind, but it seemed to me to be arbitrary what exactly the status symbol was.
Just like fashion. So they brought that up. Now, I remember as a kid we had Guess jeans were really popular.
Oh yeah.
And then there was Tommy Hilfiger.
Yeah. And what was it, like the khaki cargo pants? Those were a thing for a while.
I don't know what the brand was with those, but it changed. It was cyclical because fashion is cyclical, and they talk about how Epic does that, where skins will only be available for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And then the store refreshes, and so you have to get it, and then there's like a season where it's cool, and then the next thing comes out.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I'm not wearing that skin anymore.
You're still wearing the zebra stripes? Wow. I'm not sure if we can be associated anymore. And just the ruthlessness of these kids.
Yeah.
So,
Pro tip, don't like monitor your kids enough to make sure that they're not terrible people.
well, the one guy they talked to here, he was like, I would play with my son. I'd be like, look, son, we're both going to be defaults because it doesn't matter. And he was just like, Dad, you don't get it. You are a default, and I don't want to be one.
That's really horrifying.
That is horrifying. I mean, how do you deal with that? Do you give in? Because giving in not only reinforces bad things for your child, but you're paying $20 for a stupid skin in a video game.
That is really horrifying.
I mean, at least with jeans and shoes, they had a function.
I eventually learned to be happy with my potato sacks.
You also eventually learned that if some of the kids, if they were popular enough and just didn't care, then they would set a trend.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm not saying that was me, but there is, you don't have to be a follower, but you learn that lesson too late in life.
We've had a lot of people ask after your plaid shirts for the Level 1 store.
Which are purely functional.
They don't care.
Although, I'm going to have to get some new ones, which I don't like to do. I don't like to spend money on clothes. Seems pointless. Mr. Musk tweeted about this and made light of it. And honestly, I'm surprised it took this long.
Me too.
Don't you think?
Yep.
But it's happened. It's here.
A couple has used Tesla Autopilot in porn. So this was the number one thing on Pornhub for a while, I guess, according to the article.
Yeah, and number one search, and the actress was so proud that
She changed her name.
Tesla Taylor. If you're Musk, do you think that's good brand awareness?
Yeah, he was not going to say anything like that, but yeah, probably.
But he did mention, and I don't know if he was referencing this or just making a joke that eventually it would happen, not knowing that it already had. Now, they do point out that what they did was illegal. You shouldn't take your hand off the wheel. And this guy did, for sure. But I don't think they're going to get any criminal charges for it.
What state was it? You don't even know.
I imagine most porn is... Well, I guess that's not true anymore, right? You make porn anywhere. But most porn is shot on the West Coast, right? In California?
Probably. There would be a way to fake this as well. I mean, there's like a whole. The first time I was in California, there was a rig that was driving, and it was like a really nice, like a 1960s convertible, and it was being pulled by another truck, and there were just people in the back of the truck, like two different camera crews in the back of the truck, filming the car behind it, and it was the craziest thing that I ever saw because it looked like the people were in the car driving, but the people in the car were not driving at all. It was being pulled by another vehicle, and that's how you do driving shoots in California,
I
apparently.
think that's always how they do it.
Okay, well, I thought it was always in like a studio where like the
Although
cars.
the low budget ones, you'll notice what they do is they just like frost out the back window.
Oh, so you
and
can't tell you're not moving.
They're playing a loop of traffic back there, but you can just see like the lights and stuff because it's like, oh, the window's foggy. It's not really. I don't think that the budget for this video was high enough to have
the
the
ride
follow
along.
rig. Yeah, I don't think so. I think they actually were in the autopilot having sex.
Yeah, probably.
But you know what? You can be your own judge because you can go on the Pornhub and check it out.
Engagement challenge.
I don't know if Interesting Engineering links to it, but I'm sure you can find it easily enough.
InterestingEngineering.com. Probably another thing we're going to be demonetized for even mentioning it. So dumb. The algorithm has run amok.
Now, the other interesting thing that Interesting Engineering said is Musk has made another speech, and he says that internal combustion engines owners, if you're buying one right now, it's like you're buying a horse.
I don't think we're quite there yet. Maybe.
Not. Well, you know, when the automatic taxi revolution comes, do you want to be on the wrong side of history? They don't make your preferred mode of transportation in Tesla yet. I'm sure it's coming.
Oh, yeah. They probably do.
I think they do.
They're working on it.
I'm sure it's coming soon. Now, we decided to put this one last. We always try to put the funniest one last. This is another one where we want to get Krista's reaction to it because she's all right. I actually sent this to her during the week and did get her reaction, and she was outraged. Although she wasn't as outraged as I'd hoped. You know, I sent those links hoping for a severe reaction.
You're in like the opposite corner of the office, and you want to be able to audibly hear her reaction from your office.
The retching.
Yeah.
So when you think of hentai and manga, I guess the stereotype, and that's kind of what this guy was pointing out. The stereotype is rape. What he calls it non-consensual sex. Let's call it what it is. It's rape. Whether that's traditional or demon or tentacle or whatever. There seems to be a lot of it. And that's the joke. But this guy said, you know what? I'm going to crunch the numbers. I'm going to do the math. And I'm going to show you.
So the Anime News Network, yeah, this might be a first for Level 1 News, brings us his analysis. And this is a surprisingly dry and academic analysis with a helpful table. I think the whole article could be summed up with the table.
Yes, the table,
much.
that's the star of the show right there.
So the publishing, like if you're into, like I feel like Krista would say that the only publisher that's any good is the Magnum X at the bottom, maybe?
That is, yeah.
100% consensual.
I like, for example, Comic Babel was like, guys, keep it to a minimum, but we have to have some. Let's go for 5% rape. And they're like, what? The industry standard is 15. What are you thinking?
The industry standard is actually 15.
So, as you can see, now I don't know what Angel Club is, but they go hard. Now, here's the crazy thing. I don't know if you noticed this. Some of these don't add up to 100.
Yeah.
What's the other part?
It was ambiguous. There's a one line in there that mentions that.
Well, that might be even scarier.
Yeah.
Even scarier than the rape. Yeah. Now, this guy also chose to find a second data point, which was the number of maids. And I don't speak this language, but it seems like over time, the maids are falling out of favor. They mentioned that this guy is well known for his statistical analysis of hentai manga type stuff, which is an interesting job to have. I don't think he gets paid for it.
One that the historians will be talking about for centuries to come, no doubt.
Yeah. I guess all You know what? As a way to sign off this week, I would say be less like Angel Club and more like Magnum X. We'll see you next week.